Imagine being told your critical job is on hold, your service is deemed non-essential, or worse. You must keep working, but your paycheck is gone. This isn't a dystopian novel. It's the reality for nearly 800,000 federal workers caught in the government shutdown deadlock. These aren't faceless bureaucrats. They're air traffic controllers, food safety inspectors, border agents, and military support staff, the very backbone of critical services. As a new week begins, the specter of a completely missed paycheck is pushing hundreds of thousands of families toward a financial precipice. Statistics from past shutdowns reveal that the median government employee has only 1 week's worth of expenses saved. For every day of this deadlock, the financial shockwaves are deepening, driving ordinary Americans from stability into the terrifying uncertainty of poverty and debt. The unpaid workforce. Who are the 800,000? The central tragedy of a government shutdown lies not in the political theater, but in the immediate, paralyzing financial shock delivered to a massive segment of the nation's workforce. The number, 800,000 workers without pay, represents a diverse and vital collective of people, with their lives suddenly put on hold. This figure typically breaks down into two major groups: the furloughed deemed non-essential, and the essential who are required to work but do so without immediate compensation. The furloughed employees are ordered to stay home, effectively locked out of their jobs. This group encompasses a vast array of agencies and roles. They are scientists at the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, who can inspect hazardous waste sites, staff at the National Park Service, leaving world-renowned sites undermaintained, and IRS employees whose absence create a massive backlog that can delay billions of dollars in tax refunds. During the 2018 to 2019 shutdown, approximately 380,000 employees were furloughed at the onset, a number that demonstrates the sheer scale of the disruption. The second group, the essential employees, faces an even more insidious form of financial stress. This category includes Transportation Security Administration, TSA, agents, air traffic controllers, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, agents, and, in some cases, military support personnel. They must report to work, perform high-stress critical safety roles, and yet their paychecks are withheld. They are trading their labor for a promise of future compensation, a promise that doesn't pay the rent or buy groceries today. An estimated 420,000 employees continue to work without pay during the last major shutdown. Their morale is often crushed, a feeling a recent study suggested is equivalent to a 10% long-term salary cut due to the stress, uncertainty, and feeling of being used as a bargaining chip in a political dispute. Living on the edge, the paycheck-to-paycheck reality. The term federal worker often conjures an image of high-earning, secure employment, but the reality for many is far more precarious. Statistics reveal that a significant portion of the American workforce, including federal employees, lives on a knife's edge. The data is sobering. The median government employee has only enough money saved in their checking and savings accounts to cover roughly 1 week of expenses. This detail is crucial. It means that the first missed paycheck moved the goalpost from disruption to crisis. For a family living paycheck to paycheck, the loss of income is instantaneous. Rent and mortgage payments, which often consume the largest portion of a household budget, become immediately jeopardized. Mortgage brokers have previously warned that a shutdown can slow down lending and disrupt critical services like flood insurance verification, creating knock-on effects for private citizens attempting to close on homes. The daily cost of the crisis is staggering. It's estimated that the furloughed employees alone represent about $400 million in lost pay every single day the government is closed. This loss of consumer spending creates an immediate drag on local economies, impacting small businesses near federal offices. The crisis is also racial and socioeconomic. Studies on general unemployment show that single parents are disproportionately affected by job loss, and single mothers are more likely to experience a loss of emotional well-being for their children, a finding that translates directly to the sudden, unpaid unemployment of a government shutdown. Furthermore, non-Hispanic Black parents have historically been more likely to experience unemployment that lasts 6 months or more, suggesting that the shutdown sting is felt deepest and longest in already vulnerable communities. The slide into poverty and debt. The immediate financial shock rapidly escalates into a cascade of long-term problems. particularly debt and the tragic slide into poverty. For many families, the first step is exhausting their meager savings. The next is borrowing. Federal workers, many of whom have stable credit thanks to their jobs, are forced to take out loans, often from credit unions offering paycheck protection programs. The Navy Federal Credit Union, for instance, provided over $50 million in loans during the 2018 to 2019 shutdown. While often interest-free for a short period, these loans represent a new debt burden for people who are otherwise financially stable. The missed paychecks push families to make impossible choices. Do they pay for mortgage or buy food? Do they pay the heating bill or cover the cost of their child's medication? This is where the risk of poverty escalates. A general rule of thumb for job loss is that poverty can triple for a family when a parent is unemployed for 6 months or longer, and while federal workers eventually receive back pay, the psychological and physical stress of that period can be permanent. Children, in particular, bear the burden. Research shows that child poverty leads to children going without basic necessities like adequate food or fitting clothing. A large percentage of children in low-income families miss out on days out, family holidays, and after-school activities. The stress from their parents' financial anxiety can manifest in the children themselves, impacting their mental health and academic performance. The shutdown, therefore, isn't just a political argument. It's a direct threat to the future well-being of tens of thousands of children. The long-term economic and morale drain. While the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, estimated that the 35-day shutdown in 2018 to 2019 shaved only 0.02% off the annual U.S. GDP, totaling about $3 billion in permanent losses, this figure belies the deeper, structural damage done to the federal workforce and the economy. The total cost of prior shutdowns, in terms of back pay and administrative costs, was calculated to be at least $3.7 billion across just 3 shutdowns. This is taxpayer money spent not on services, but on the administrative costs of shutting down and restarting government, a colossal waste born of political impasse. The hidden cost, however, is the brain drain. The shock to morale leads many experienced, talented civil servants to leave government employment for private sector. Older employees may opt for early retirement, while younger, skilled workers find jobs in strong labor markets. This loss of human capital directly leads to a reduction in government performance, with agencies reporting an increase in errors and faulty payments. For instance, a small rise of just 1% in accounting mistakes across all government spending can equate to billions of dollars in losses. The shutdown, therefore, weakens the government's ability to function long after the lights are turned back on, undermining the very services the public relies on. It's an unsustainable cycle where political infighting is paid for the financial security of hard-working families and the long-term effectiveness of the government itself. The ripple effect, small towns and local economies. When 800,000 people are suddenly locked out of their wages, the financial shockwave doesn't stop at their front door. It ripples outward, hitting the bakeries, the barbershops, the dry cleaners, and the local credit unions that form the backbone of their communities. This isn't just a D.C. problem. It's an American economic problem with hyper-localized pain points. The economic impact multiplies. For every dollar lost by a federal worker, local businesses often lose a corresponding dollar in sales. This is a multiplier effect in reverse, a deflationary spiral where lack of consumer confidence translates into immediate business decline. We often focus on the spectacle of Capitol Hill, but the real financial casualty is Main Street, USA. Geographic concentration, focusing on cities with high percentages of federal workers, e.g., Washington, D.C. metro area, areas near military bases or research centers. While the federal workforce is spread across the nation, its impact is disproportionately concentrated in specific geographic areas. Naturally, the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, including parts of Maryland and Virginia, bears the brunt, with federal salaries fueling a massive regional economy. However, the impact is just as severe and often more devastating in smaller, less economically diverse communities. Consider the military-based towns, where Department of Defense civilians and support staff are the primary employers. Think of the regional hubs for the Department of Homeland Security or centers for agricultural research. In these places, a shutdown is not a mild economic headwind. It is a full-blown economic hurricane. When a small town's largest employer is a federal prison, a national park headquarters, or an FAA air traffic control center, the furloughs are catastrophic. The financial ecosystem of the entire town is often built around the steady, reliable paycheck of the U.S. government. Local business collapse. Let's trace the path of a missing paycheck. That federal worker who skipped lunch at the local sandwich shop is saving $15 a day. They didn't get their work shirts dry cleaned, saving another $20. They canceled their weekend dinner plans, saving $100. Multiply this micro-saving by 800,000 people over a few weeks, and the lost consumer spending becomes staggeringly large. Small businesses operate on thin margins. They can't absorb a 30% drop in revenue for a month. During recent shutdowns, businesses in federal-heavy areas reported revenue drops of between 30% and 50%. For a small coffee shop or a family-owned daycare, that is the difference between staying afloat and laying off their own non-federal staff. The shutdown turns into an unemployment crisis for people who have nothing to do with the federal government. For every federal worker who goes unpaid, there is a small business owner who cannot pay rent and an unrelated hourly worker who loses shifts. The hidden toll, mental health and family strain. The most insidious costs of a government shutdown are the ones you can't easily put a number on. The corrosion of trust, the anxiety, and the stress that fractures family stability. The official designation of being non-essential is itself a psychological blow, but the financial terror that follows is far more damaging to the human spirit. Stress and uncertainty. The psychological burden of not knowing when the next paycheck will arrive. Imagine being told that your job is mandatory, yet your salary is optional. The psychological burden of the shutdown is arguably heavier than the immediate financial one. The overwhelming feeling is one of utter powerlessness. Employees are caught between two warring political factions, their livelihoods used as a bargaining chip. This creates chronic, high-level stress. Clinical studies on the mental health impact of past shutdowns have shown increases in anxiety, depressive symptoms, and sleep disturbances among furloughed workers. The sense of loyalty and duty these public servants feel is betrayed, leading to profound erosion of trust in the government, their employer. For many, public service is a calling, and to have that calling treated with such disregard is demoralizing. This emotional toll can linger long after back pay is received, potentially affecting job performance and recruitment into the civil service for years to come. The tough choices, prioritizing bills, heat or eat, cutting back on necessities like medications, childcare, or fresh produce. The absence of a paycheck forces families into brutal triage. Every decision becomes a zero-sum game. This is where the infamous choice of heat or eat becomes a terrible reality. Do they pay the electric bill to keep the lights and heat on, or do they buy groceries? For families relying on prescription medications, the choice is even more dire. Pay the pharmacy or pay the rent. We see immediate cutbacks in the most vital areas. Families switch from fresh produce, which is expensive, to cheaper, processed foods, impacting the long-term health of their children. They cancel doctor appointments and skip dental checkups. A recent statistical analysis showed that families affected by a prolonged shutdown reported cutting back on health-related spending by over 25% during the furlough period, decisions that have serious long-term consequences for their well-being. Childcare crisis. Furloughed parents who cannot afford childcare and therefore cannot take on temporary jobs to earn income. One of the cruelest ironies of the shutdown is the childcare catch. 22. Parents who are furloughed are suddenly without their primary income source and desperately need money. Their most rational option is to seek temporary gig economy jobs, driving for a rideshare service, stocking shelves, or working retail to bridge the financial gap. However, they cannot do this without childcare. The average weekly cost of infant care often exceeds $200 per child. Furloughed parents, having no income, cannot afford this expense, effectively trapping them at home. They can neither work their government job nor work a temporary job, eliminating both potential income streams. This inability to earn exacerbates their financial distress, turning a short-term crisis into a devastating long-term hardship. The impact on the children's stability, seeing their parents stressed and their routine disrupted, is immeasurable, pushing families into poverty. While many federal workers earn stable middle-class wages, a significant portion of the 800,000 are low to moderate income earners. Think administrative assistants, park rangers, and food safety inspectors. For a family of four, the federal poverty line is currently around $30,000 annually. A single month-long shutdown represents a loss of roughly 8.3% of their annual income. For a family hovering just above the poverty line, this single, politically driven event can be enough to plunge them below it. This is more than a temporary inconvenience. It is a statistical reclassification of their economic status, unlocking eligibility for social assistance programs and marking them as officially impoverished. This financial trauma is not erased by back pay because the credit card debt incurred to survive those weeks, often at high interest rates, remains a long-term anchor.